comes to the local market in South Africa, a little bit of weakness filtering through, and also some weakness in one of the blue chips here. MTN was down by 1.75%. And as I said, we spoke to the CEO earlier today to unpack the numbers. Let's take a listen.
I guess across the board we've done very well. I think Nigeria we grew about just over 5 million subscribers. Iran just over 5 million subscribers. South Africa just over 3 million. Ghana just over 1 million. So across the board we did very well. We did suffer in 2 markets as a direct result of registration, which was Uganda Uganda and Ivory Coast, because Cameroon was the year before. But usually we do always manage to catch up after the registration process has been concluded.
In South Africa, you talk about around 3 million new subscribers, looking at organic revenue growth of 7%. Were you satisfied with the group's performance? Because specifically in South Africa, we've seen strong competition on the pricing front. And what is your view in terms of how data is growing relative to voice?
Look, we're satisfied with our performance in South Africa, and as you rightly say, there has been significant pricing competition. We're quite satisfied again, with getting 3 million additional subscribers in this environment. Data will remain a very important part of our business into the future, and hence the comments about the migration to an all-IP network. Once we move into an all-IP network, our ability to deliver data much more efficiently is enhanced, and there will definitely be a shift in the overall business model, where data will become a significant part of our business.
LTE rollout in South Africa was launched via a pilot project. How's that gone, and what are constraints right now?
No, look, that has gone very well. I mean, from a limited rollout perspective, the key issue really is availability of spectrum. And as we indicated earlier on, we are still awaiting government policy and the CASA process on what or how future allocations of spectrum will take place.
In Nigeria, let's just talk about that market, because your market share has dropped there to 47.8%, and it has been a market where competition has been high. You've seen revenues overall falling back by 1%, voice revenue down 10%. You're spending a lot of money in terms of capital expenditure there, 13.7 billion rand in this period. You've allocated around 13 billion rand in the next period. So a large chunk of your spend is going into Nigeria. How's that going to position you? Do you think that you're positioned now for to be able to ward off the competition, to start growing that revenue line again?
Yes, I think we're definitely well positioned. And the key issue here is that we've had price reductions in Nigeria that were quite significant, and therefore as a direct result of that, demands on the network went up quite significantly, and therefore it became fundamental that we increase our capacity quite significantly. So we believe now that we've got much higher network quality, which just basically means also the minutes on the network will improve. In other words, you've reduced the congestion, therefore the number of calls going through will improve, and our ability to compete. I think the issue is that our pricing levels, because of the network congestion issues, were slightly higher than our competition for a while, especially in the first half of last year. But now I think we're in a very good position, a very strong position. We will continue to roll out the network aggressively during the course of this year, and all that capacity will just put us in very good stead.
You've still got a strong position, of course, in Iran, 46.9% market share there. But how are the sanctions impacting the business and in terms of repatriation of dividends?
Well, I guess the key issue here from an operational point of view is how the vendors and the suppliers respond to the issue of sanctions, whether they will either reduce their exposure or they might even consider pulling out. At this stage, our main vendors have not indicated that they would pull out, but they would look at reducing their exposure. So that is one way that we could be impacted. You are right in that we have not been able to repatriate any of our funds, either the loan repayment or dividends. But we continue to engage with the relevant authorities to be able to...
How much of a loss is that right now in terms of overall money sitting in Iran?
Well, there's just about $400 million, which is the loan repayment. And then in terms of dividends, it's just below $300 million.
Just looking at the dividend side for shareholders, you've changed your dividend policy now. The final dividend declared 503 cents, but just explain the rationale behind the change.
The rationale is that the concern that we have is the volatility and the impact of the volatility of foreign currencies on our earnings. And by going this way, at least we are guaranteeing our shareholders a definite increase on the absolute value, on the absolute dividend, as opposed to be basing it on a payout ratio, which could be very much impacted on the foreign currency fluctuation. So the issue was to try and remove the impact of the volatility from the dividend.
That was, of course, MTN CEO Sifiso